Hi, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Thank you for joining today's presentation. I'm going to get into our presenter and our topic in just a sec. I see people joining in from that waiting room here. Let's wait for a few more to come on in. As you can see on the screen, today's topic is retractable pool, spa, patio enclosures. And we have Alex here from Pool and Spa Enclosures to present this topic for us. Now, a few things before we get into today's presentation. First one, it is AIA approved, so you will be receiving one learning credit for attending today's presentation. If you weren't able to fill out your AIA registration number when you signed up, I will drop a link in the chat. That's the best way to ensure you receive credit for today's presentation. Also, feel free to use the Q&A at the bottom. Any questions we'll have time for at the end of today's presentation. You can also use that chat to direct them towards me. And then the final thing is I want to show you where to find pool and spa enclosures on Acelab. So looking at my screen right here, you'll be able to scroll down, getting in contact with Alex right here. Great way to directly get more information about the products you're going to be seeing today. And then if you look all the way down, he's got some really great pictures here and some really great products. If I click on this, this is an example of one of his products here. You can request more information directly, save and compare the product, and then also scroll down and see all that performance data here. So I'm going to stop sharing screen, and I think that is everything. So I'm going to let Alex get into the presentation.
All right, terrific. Thank you. Again, I'm Alex Stonkus. I am CEO of Pool and Spa Enclosures. So I'm going to kind of give you a general overview of what we're going to look at today. We're going to talk about not only residential, but also commercial applications for what are pool, spa, patio enclosures. Predominantly, I'm going to talk about retractable, but I often have the question, can they be fixed? The answer is yes. Enclosures such as you're going to see today can be fixed. They're going to be for basically predominantly made out of what is polycarbonate, although you're going to find some of like the restaurant type enclosures made out of safety glass and things of that nature. So from that standpoint, there's a lot of flexibility with regards to the material. They can be, whether they be manual, they can be motorized. So we'll get into that as well. This course is going to also examine the what I'll call the technical specifications, operational, the way the system is going to operate, how it's going to perform, how it's going to have the impact on energy and efficiency and maintenance that people are always looking at. And you get into the pools, you get into the chemical usage and building codes we'll go through from that standpoint. So again, we'll talk about residential as well as commercial applications. In this course, we've got 4 learning objectives I'd like to get across. One is to evaluate the operational benefits of and the performance of the characteristics of the enclosure, which would be everything from thermal efficiency to how they're give you that UV protection and rating there, security, unwanted entry, to having the ability to give yourself reduction in chemical and maintenance and things of that nature. We're going to analyze the structural design classification systems of the enclosures. That would be wind loads, snow loads, engineering, compliance, building codes, and so on. And then third, we'll get into comparing different enclosures, different designs, whether it's commercial, residential, the constraints of kind of the enclosures and how they can be integrated into an architect's particular project from that standpoint. And then we'll get into the classifications with regards to materials, whether, the polycarbonate, the doors and the locations and windows, and just kind of the aesthetics of a particular enclosure that you may be out there looking to design and implement within your client's specification. All right, so from a gender standpoint, we're going to talk about what is an enclosure, again, predominantly retractable, the enclosure operations, how they work, the benefits of the enclosures, the different types of examples of types of enclosures, again, the compliance with regards to the codes, specifications, and then kind of walk you through a typical progression of a project. And then lastly, we'll get into some Q&A. All right, so from a standpoint, hence the name retractable, and that's think about it like a telescopic. It's going to open and close. You're going to start with one section being higher than the next, and they'll telescopically all rebound or close into each other, whether the highest one closes on top of the lower one or the lower one goes underneath the higher one. So from a standpoint, you have that capability where there are telescopic bays. And so the bays can be different sizes. What is typical is about a 7-foot bay increments. So think about it in running lengths of 7 feet. So 20, 28, 35, 42, 49, and so on. And then from a standpoint, they could be residential or commercial type ones. They're going to be retracted, so which means that they're going to be sliding. From those bay telescopic sliding, they're going to slide along a track. So typically, you're going to find the tracks are about a ½ inch high, slip resistant, comfortable to walk on. Some of the applications, you're going to have inlay, which is going to be the track's going to be inlaid in within the floor of the surrounding deck around it, but which makes it nice if it's a surface mounted. That means whether it's an existing pool or a patio or a restaurant or an application such as that, then you can go ahead and put the track, again, it's only a ½ inch high, it's slip resistant, it's comfortable to walk on. You can put that right on top of the existing deck, which quite often you're going to find, and again, once you get into the commercial ones, you get into a different application as far as, the thickness of what is the surface that your track needs to be mounted on. Residential, it's typically a 4-inch or 6-inch max base that the track would be sitting on in order to be structurally sound, to be supportive of being able to operate and retract properly. The systems can be manual, which means very simple, and we'll see a little bit later on an example of what that looks like, having a child move the enclosure. They can be manual, they can be motorized. Motorized, you're going to typically see two different type of applications. One is you're going to see solar powered. So there are systems out there which will have the capability of being solar powered, but then people say, well, what if I don't have enough solar energy and so on? Well, there's a docking station. It's just similar to your, the robot that you got in the house that's doing your floor cleaning. When it's all done, what does it do? It goes back to the docking station and gets charged. So, systems out there will go back, they'll be motorized, solar powered, and they'll go back to a docking station. That docking station is hardwired so that you don't 100% rely on solar, although you can. So that's kind of the twist between that. And then the larger commercial ones will actually be electric because solar is just not strong enough in the motors to open something that could be 30, 40, 50 feet wide. So you get into the more of the electric type systems there. And again, the systems are retractable. And so from an operation standpoint, specific now to pool enclosures, these particular pool enclosures, what you want to do is you want to make sure that each section is going to slide. So if we look at the bottom right where you see 1 through 5, you can kind of see that they're progressively going down. 5 being the highest number is the highest segment, and then it'll progressively go down 4, 3, 2, 1. And then there'll be what are called pins on the outside. Well, those pins will stop the sideways movement of the enclosure. Then you have, from a standpoint, you could release those pins. You can slide them all to the right, slide them to the left side. You can open them up from the middle. So being manual, they're all independently operated on there. If it's a system that is motorized, whether electric, then they're all interlocked to each other. So they all slide to right, slide to left, and then you can stop where they're going to be particularly opening in that within that track. So think about it like a train. As far as that track rides is as far as that you can slide the enclosure. So as you see in the drawing, you're going to see extended track on the right-hand side. So by having extended track, it allows you to take that enclosure, like you see in the bottom there, left-hand side, and slide that completely off and away from your pool or deck area. Now, what a lot of people will do is they'll leave that higher section, like you're going to see there, that segment on the right-hand side in that pool enclosure. They're going to leave that section there because it becomes a cabana, which allows people to sit under and enjoy that environment versus being out in the sun. So retractable enclosures, from the benefits, not only do you get year-round use, you're going to reduce your heating costs, your chemical usage, your maintenance is going to be reduced, gives you that security, and as I said, UV protection. So we'll dive into each one of these. From a standpoint, I can't tell you how many times that I hear, oh boy, you know what? I was going to get a pool, but all of a sudden I was only going to use it, again, depending on what part of the country you're in. If you're in the Northeast, you might get 3, 4 months. If you're down south, maybe 6, 7, 8 months out of the year. But at the end of the day, there'll be a point where, people look at this and say, well, to be able to have that pool and be able to utilize it 365 days a year makes it more interesting, makes it more enjoyable. We're seeing a lot as well in like Airbnbs that are saying, hey, I want to be able to utilize my facility, not only during the regular season, but how do I draw people? If I'm up in, let's say, the Catskills or up in the mountains where it gets cold and so on and so forth, how do I be able to draw people into my facility, into my Airbnb, my rental, to say, hey, you know what, you can swim or you can entertain, you can use your spa, you can use your patio 365 days a year. So not only do, the enclosure is going to extend that season and give you that capability. From a standpoint, see, the more disparity you have between the outside air temperature and what is the water temperature, the more evaporation you have. And 90% of your heat loss is coming from that evaporation. So by having the enclosure sitting over your pool, you reduce that disparity between the outside air temperature and the water temperature. Hence, what does that mean? It means that from a standpoint, you've drawn the temperature of the air closer to your water temperature, which is going to reduce two things. One is your heat loss, which is your steam going off there, which is the energy. And by that steam going off your pool, that's your water loss. So by having the enclosure over the pool, you've reduced your energy loss as well as your heating cost from that standpoint. Chemical usage, one of the worst things for your pool is what is the sun. The sun is coming down on that pool, and what is it doing? It's burning your chlorine. Well, burning your chlorine, not only that, but you also have acid rain. You have your leaves and debris and everything else getting in the pool. So typically, we're hearing customers are using or utilizing or reducing, I'll call it, their chemical usage by about 70 to 80%. Because you're not fighting the outside elements. You're not fighting the acid rain, the leaves and debris, and just everything else, and the sun that's hitting your pool and burning your chlorine. So you're going to significantly reduce what is your chemical usage from that standpoint. The enclosure is fully lockable. So whether it's the doors, sliding doors, you're going to find that they're fully lockable. The segments in themselves, where you can go ahead and say, hey, I can have that capability where I've got a small child, or I want to leave my property. I got an Airbnb, or I got a restaurant or a hotel, and I want to be able to know that when I lock it, it's safe. Now, polycarbonate is 200 times stronger than glass. I mean, virtually unbreakable. It's UV protected. So it's giving you all those benefits outside of being that, security, whether they've got or you've got pets or rental properties and the things of that nature, that again, all the sections can be locked and fully secured. The enclosure, polycarbonate, I don't know if you remember the olden days. I'm kind of outdating myself here, maybe, but I remember the old telephone booths. You look at those and you'd see, okay, they're polycarbonate. They're about that thick, about an inch and a half thick in some of those. And they were just getting cloudy or they're getting a whitening and everything else. So from that standpoint, back then, the technology wasn't there or wasn't realized that I had to do this. And you'll see this in the bus stops and things of that nature when they use polycarbonate, that it's whitening, it's yellowing, it's discoloring. Well, in today's modern world, all the polycarbonate, well, at least we use, it should be used, is UV protected, which means that two things. One is it's protecting the polycarbonate in itself from whitening, yellowing, discoloring. And second of all, it's protecting you when you're underneath the enclosure, which simply says that it's like wearing 80 sunscreen when you're underneath the enclosure. So quite often I'll hear, oh boy, you know what, the sun, I have to stay out of the sun or it's not good for me. Or my kids, they spend too much time in the sun or things of that nature, where being under the enclosure is a great way to go ahead and reduce that sun exposure and being out in the open environment predominantly at the same time. From a maintenance standpoint, the enclosure itself is going to significantly, I'll say, reduce your maintenance. From a standpoint, you could go ahead and have your pool, whether you clean it today or you get a pool company or maintenance service company, go ahead and clean your pool. They clean it today and you get a storm that comes by tomorrow, your pool is going to look like that one on the left-hand side where you're like, oh my gosh, I just got my pool. And you want to enjoy, at the end of the day, you want to be able to enjoy yourself. A pool shouldn't be a maintenance nightmare, which to a lot of people, it actually turns out to be that way. From a standpoint now, they've got, okay, I've got this, I've got the leaves and debris, and my neighbor won't cut his tree down. You hear all those stories that are out there. Now, having the retractable enclosure, no matter what the outside elements are doing, the leaves and debris, the weather, the so on, you wake up, you go swimming, you enjoy it. From that standpoint, you're going to, as I said, you're going to reduce your chemical usage, reduce your heating costs. And so you've not only knocked out your wind chill factor is gone, but your hail, sleet, rain, snow, leaves, debris. So nice weather, open it up. Inclement weather, keep your enclosure closed. So getting into, from a standpoint, you're going to see low height ones. You're going to see high enclosures or middle or medium height enclosures. And then we'll get into the spa enclosures, the patio enclosures. You can also, which is interesting, you'll see out there where not every pool is what I'll call a rectangle and very simple on one level. So what does that mean? You get into different types of scenarios where you get into different sizes. You can have a custom enclosure, or you can have a standard type enclosure, combinations, which simply mean, hey, I want to be able to get in my enclosure where I can stand up in there, I can disrobe, and then I can go into a pool that maybe I can just do my laps in. I don't need it to be 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 feet high. Having it 4 or 5 feet high is perfectly fine. We'll get into what I'll call atypicals, which could be different levels, different parallel points and things like that. You can enclosures in today's modern world, they can be tunnels. In a sense, when I say tunnels, it says, hey, I got my main enclosure that's sitting here, but I want to leave my house. I don't want to go outside the outside elements and to get to my enclosure. So whether that enclosure would butt to the house or whether it would be a tunnel that would transition you from what is, let's say, whether you got a pool house or a house and into the main enclosure. And then, you're going to look at different options that are valuable when you look at the enclosures. Look at the options that are out there, whether it's the colors of the frames, the polycarbonate choices, the tracks, the layouts, the doors. There are things called lift-up gates and just other types of um, for the most part, that will make it more accessible and understanding with regards to going ahead and designing and laying out something that is good for your clients, to go ahead and say, hey, wow, that's a great alternative, and let's do this and that. So we'll jump into all these in a moment. Uh, so from a low height standpoint, here are just some examples of different shapes that are out there. So somebody that's looking at a low height one says, hey, you know what? I don't want to block my view, whether I'm looking at the mountains or whether I'm looking at a lake or my landscaping or whatever might be the case. You might be in a HOA. An HOA typically says, I know we get into this in Arizona and so on, that says, well, the wall's 6 feet high, you can't have an enclosure that's higher or any structure that's higher than 6 feet high, which is fine. So then all of a sudden, you just lay out and you design that type of enclosure in order to fit the surrounding or elements that you're looking at. From a standpoint, you have the capability of looking at this and saying, all right, do I go with the low height one? Well, I don't want to block my view. I don't want it to be too large, and maybe I got a smaller backyard and it gets too much and too overwhelming. So a low height one, or maybe I say, well, I just want a lap pool, and I want to be able to get in there. I want to swim. I want to get out, and I want to, enjoy it. And I don't want to wake up and clean my pool and have all the maintenance nightmares. So again, I would look at what is a low height type enclosure. Then you get into the medium height enclosures. Well, the medium height enclosures are typically getting back to the low height one, they're going to be anywhere from, let's say, a foot to 3 feet, 4 feet. And again, the wider it is, the higher it's going to be in order to kind of support that free spanning distance. But you get into a medium height enclosure, and typically the medium heights are from 5 feet, you're going to find till 7, 8 feet high, which would also give you that capability to get in saying, oh, I don't want to block my view that much, but I do want to get kind of a medium height one where I can get in, I can get some entertainment space, I can move around freely in what is the central part or the center of the enclosure, so that I can go ahead and utilize the ability to have let's call it a chair in there, or a table that I can sit down, I can relax, whether my kids or spouse is going swimming, or get out and dry off and go inside. So that medium height's a great way to say, I don't want to go with a full height enclosure, but from a standpoint of getting some movement and flexibility to have some space inside, that medium height's a great alternative for me. Then you get into the high enclosures. Well, the high enclosure is exactly that. I can go ahead and say, I want to be able to walk freely around the pool. I want to be able to have that space where I can go ahead and entertain, or I can run around all four sides of the pool, and whether I've got an Airbnb or a big family and grandkids or whatever it may be the case that you as an architect is dealing with in designing and implementing the particular layout of this. Now with this, I mean, yes, we're talking about pools, but I've seen people, we've got people who are out there, they're using the enclosures for entertainment space, which means putting in a patio type environment, which would consist of a TV and a lounge room, so to speak, a pool table or this and that. So a lot of different other applications that can be outside of a type of a pool type environment. So there are multiple purposes for having a high enclosure, and large, and again, the high one is more of entertaining. So having that capability of entertaining out there to say, hey, I want to be able to get that capability where I can walk freely, I can get around. So, and there again, everyone's different. Low height ones, medium, high, they've got all great aspects in order to go ahead and justify your client's capability or desire to go ahead and make their surroundings what they're looking to have. Then we get into combination. So exactly that. Combination means one or two or more different types of enclosures. So as we see in the bottom left there, that particular one is, now keep in mind it's telescopic, which means that the tracks need to run in a parallel line. So when those tracks run in a parallel line, it gives that the capability that says the design of that pool is wider at one end than the other. Well, how do we overcome that if I only want to utilize to surround my pool? And that's with what is a combination type enclosure, which means that, hey, I want to get in, I want to have some height there, but then when I'm swimming, I want a lower height one. The one that you see in the middle there, the center one, is actually kind of a three prong. I got some entertainment space. I got a spa in the middle there, and then I got a lap pool that's 70 feet long that I want to be able to do my swimming in. So again, different types of enclosures will do that. The upper left-hand one, I'm sorry, the upper right-hand one, same thing. I want to be able to get in. I want to disrobe, but then I've got a 90-foot lap pool that I want to be able to go ahead and swim in. And utilize that space. So a combination would allow you to go ahead and have different models that you can go ahead and satisfy your clients' different purposes for entertaining or utilization of the environment there. Then you get into, as I said earlier, not every pool is built the same. Not every pool is a rectangle, and people's expectations or desires or layout or, as you're planning stuff are quite different at times. So in the bottom left, you can see, okay, they got an upper level, and so the enclosure, these are known as atypical type enclosures, where they could be on different levels, as you see on the bottom left. The one on the center one, it's actually got 8-foot walls around it, and then it's got a center drop that has a door in it, and then there's a pool kind of in between that gets that utilization. So from that versus the bottom right one, that is just a crazy pool. It's all over. So again, they want to utilize the space that they have, but have that capability to go ahead and get in and get some entertainment space and swim all year. So, and again, this kind of gives you the idea that says there are systems out there that will satisfy a whole lot of different, whether it's an odd shaped pool, whether it's on different levels, whether it's configured from a infinity pool that drops down to a different level so there are lots of different applications that enclosures can be used for. So jumping now to spa enclosures. Well, exactly that. I say spa, but we have a lot of them that are being used for glamping, that glorified camping, where campgrounds will buy the enclosures. They'll utilize them for people to go ahead and entertain or sleep in and, rent them out and things of that nature. There's companies like Merck and Company and so on that will buy enclosures and put them on their campuses. And they put them on their campuses because their employees go out there. They have entertainment space, whether they're having meetings or lunch meetings or getting together and so on. So other different applications like the Spa Dome Orlando, as an example, is a popular one from that you see in the upper right-hand corner. So, from a spa standpoint, same thing. You're going to see different types of applications that are out there, whether the bottom left, where you can see that it kind of butts to the house, where you can walk directly out of a house or a room directly into the enclosure. The second one from the left gives you, okay, there's a retaining wall they want to drop a spa in there and they want to be able to utilize that space. So they have that versus a swim spa where, no, I just want to cover my spa. I want to slide it off. I want to get in and out of that from that standpoint versus a high one where I've got a spa that's above ground, and I can utilize that by having 365 days a year by having an enclosure over that. So versus the bottom right one where, hey, I don't have necessarily the space, but I get an above ground one and I just want to be able to utilize that spa, whether I need it for therapy or I've got arthritis or whatever might be the case. You can go ahead and utilize that spa 365 days a year. Nice weather. What do? You slide it open. Inclement weather, keep it closed. And there's a door on the lateral side. You don't necessarily see that so well here, but there's a door in it so you can get in your enclosure standing up. You're not going on your knees and whatnot. You just walk in your enclosure standing up like a lateral door on the side there. So that's kind of the application there. From a patio standpoint, uh, whether it's for entertaining space or you want to have a spa or a swim spa underneath, I mean, there are all sorts of applications here. Uh, they're all retractable, or as I said in the beginning, they could be fixed. Now, but keep in mind, polycarbonate is going to create that greenhouse effect to warm up inside. So, which you're going to love come September, October, November, December, January, February into March, April, and then you can ultimately have that capability where you can utilize that space throughout the year. Then from a standpoint, these are patio enclosures quite often are what we call, you'll see in the industry, lean-tos. They're going to lean to a side of a building. So when it leans to the side of the building, it gives them the capability of saying, hey, I'm going to go ahead and retract that from whether I open it up all to the right side, open it up to the left side. There are things out there in the industry that is known as what is a standalone wall, which you'll see on the right-hand side in that middle picture there, which is basically a wall that is structurally sound wall that you can release that and then slide everything to one side to make it more open, the enclosure itself. So there are structures out there that'll be more rounded that people like, more of a 90-degree type angle. So again, there are different applications that will fit. As being an architect, you say, well, how's this fit into the surroundings or my area or my whole structure and design? So there are different shapes that a particular, not whether it's a pool enclosure, patio, or a spa enclosure can take here as well. Then you get into people who say, well, from a standpoint, I have this pool, but geez, I don't want to be outside. I want to walk directly out of my whether it's a pool house or into or out of my house or and have that capability of walking right into the enclosure. So on the upper left-hand side, there are systems out there that you're going to see tunnels. So that you say, okay, I'm going to take a door, I'm going to slide it open, I'm going to walk into my tunnel, I'm going to open up another door, and then I'm going to go into my main enclosure. So I can go ahead and transition from my house directly into my pool without any issues. When you see the center picture on the top one where it reads step tunnel, that elevation from the house down to the pool is 3 feet. Well, what you don't see there, but there's a ramp, for a handicapped or a wheelchair to make it from the top from the house door and out to the pool area. So again, having different elevations, you've got to look at these systems and say, well, okay, I can be on 3 foot elevation drop and make that tunnel so that you can transition in the middle of winter and get to the main enclosure. The partial face, which is top right-hand corner that you're going to see there. On the left-hand side of that, where it says partial face, is, hey, I got this little room here, which is my pool house, but I want to make my enclosure wider on the right side, left side. So, the enclosure spans out, makes that wing, so to speak, to go ahead and fully encapsulate the entire room so that you can walk out of that pool house and directly into the enclosure from that utilization. The bottom left where you see what is called ceiling profile. Well, think about it like a gasket. Well, that gasket goes on the side of the wall. And that gasket on the side of the wall would simply say to you that the enclosure would butt against that wall there so that you can walk directly out of your pool house or house into the enclosure. By doing that, it allows you the capability of releasing that segment right next to the house and pushing it away from that pool house and having that completely open space there. So from that standpoint, uh, the bottom right gives you what is called a freestanding face, which structurally is a 6-inch freestanding wall that will stay there. When you want to release it, you just push the enclosure. This particular design allows you to push the enclosure towards the house and then have that spa completely open to the sky for the enjoyment there. And then, as I said, the enclosures types or lean-tos are very popular with regards to being able to walk directly out of a house and into your enclosure from that standpoint. All right, let's jump into some commercial applications now. So uses that we see out there are from restaurants to bars to hotels to I've seen them over turtle habitats, or koi ponds to dog runs to holding tanks and retractable roofs on Navy ships to Google, putting them on roof or corporations putting them on the roofs that'll open and close for their employees. So in the top right, you're going to see more of a kind of environment of a restaurant type environment where, hey, you know what? I got not only I'm protected from the outside environments, but I also have my own entertainment space for gatherings, whether it's a private parties or inclement weather, whatever might be the case, that you can go ahead and utilize the applications with regards to that. Uh, you have the capability of restaurants, as you see in the top left-hand side, that nice weather. I know if I'm going to a restaurant, I prefer to eat outside. Well, that's not always the case where you can go ahead and utilize that space outside because it might be too windy or too cold or so what do? You close the enclosure. Now think about it. Anything that you do to supplement the heat inside your home, you can also do inside the enclosure. So whether you got a kind of wall unit or you've got radiated heaters and things of that nature, you can go ahead and supplement the heat if need be. But again, you've knocked out the wind chill factors gone and all your other outside elements from that standpoint. Then you get into what I'll call more of the banquet type hall facilities where the entire roof will open and close. Uh, from that standpoint, the top left one again is a reception. They hold weddings or bar mitzvahs and so on and so forth there. Versus something like the bottom middle one is more of a restaurant type application. The top right one is that's kind of an example over a community pool where these residents want to be able to swim 365 days a year. And to have that particular one's up in Maine. I'm familiar with that one. But from a standpoint, it gives them the capability of saying, hey, you know what? I can hold classes every day of the week if I'd like. I can swim 365 days a year. So it just gives you different thoughts of applications that are out there that says, hey, whether I got a restaurant, a hotel, or a bar, or a beer garden where the whole roof will open and close and so on. So think about that as you're kind of planning out, whether it's commercial side or the residential side that we had talked about. Then you get into from a standpoint of kind of, I'll call it different entries. You can have a single door. As you see, they're handicap accessible. Typical doors are anywhere from 3 to 4 feet wide, sliding doors, so that there's no sill to step over, so that you can go ahead and, as I said, they're handicap accessible. You can have a hinge door. Typically, I like to see out in the industry, I like to see what is a sliding door versus a hinge door. It just brings me back to the olden days where I had kids and they left the screen door was not latched and the wind came by and blew it off. And I'm like, okay, that's not exactly what I'd like to have happened, but that's what happens. You get a hinge door and versus a sliding door, it's just much more practical. So, but there are spots and applications you'll see out there that don't allow for a sliding door because having a sliding door, if you got a door that's 3 foot opening, you need 3 feet to slide it to. And that, as you see where it says hinge door, it doesn't exist. So there are hinge doors out there. Uh, then there's what's called a lateral door, which is on this side of the enclosure. That might be more practical for somebody to say, hey, I can slide that door open, walk right in, and have that accessibility to have that capability to go ahead and utilize that space. Um, Panic doors, I only see, or we only are out there for commercial applications. Okay, so that's kind of code, so to speak, that says, hey, I can go ahead and hit that bar. By hitting that bar, I'm going to get in and get accessibility to get out of a restaurant or a commercial application location that is required with a panic door. Then you get into the double sliding doors, which basically says, hey, I got 2 3 foot doors, I slide them open, and what does that do? It creates me a larger atmosphere or ability to get in and out, which is a 6 foot opening. Screen doors, we see them out there, as well as door screens on doors, as well as windows. And then there are accordion doors, which you'll see in the bottom there. Basically, it says, hey, I can go ahead and instead of having a 3 or 6 foot opening, I can have a 15 or 20 foot opening, again, depending on the size of what is the enclosure, to have an accordion door that gives that capability. Then on the bottom right is what's called a lift-up gate. That lift-up gate is, hey, if there's a ladder or handrail or something I have to get on and over, or maybe at the end of the pool, there's not enough space for me to slide the enclosure completely off and away from the pool. That lift-up gate, by being open, gives me the capability of swimming all the way down and then swimming back, and then I'm basically under the enclosure, but it's that lift-up gate allows me to bypass through to the end of the pool itself. All right, then we get into kind of accessories. There's things out in the market called air fresh. Air fresh is basically says, hey, I'm going to open up the segment a couple inches, I'm going to lock it down, and then I'm going to release that hot air. By releasing that hot air, I'm going to reduce what is the temperature inside, which then allows me to go ahead and control my water temperature. So that's what that. The center motor is what a typical solar power motor would look like. The diving board is kind of an accessory that says, hey, I want to have the enclosure at the end of my pool, but I don't want to cover my diving board. So what do? You put a slot in there and gets that utilization. Air guard is a system that will drop down and reduce what is the air take of that in the off season. It's like a door sweep. So it's on what is the side of the enclosure that would reduce what is that cold air getting inside the enclosure. Quite often you're going to see, well, every pool, for the most part, has got a skimmer. So, whether you're going to have the track run over the skimmer, there are options out there like a snap out track that would say, hey, you know what, I got to clean my pool, skimmer out. So I snap the track out, clean it out, and have that utilization. And then you get into the windows there. Out there from a standpoint, you're going to see different colors of the profile. Again, the profile is aluminum. You got white, silver, charcoal. You got an antique brown. The track can be silver or bronze. Polycarbonate choices, whether it's translucent, which is obscured, or compact, clear as glass. You have those choices. So if we look at the upper left-hand picture, it's a twin wall. That twin wall is obscured. It's kind of equated to, hey, this is the olden showers that you used to look at, but you really couldn't see somebody, and it's a little obscured and blue, and gives you that being twin wall. Okay, so it's a honeycomb twin wall. By being a honeycomb twin wall, it means that it's got an air pocket in the middle. By having that air pocket in the middle, it gives you a better thermal efficiency, which is the retention of that heat. So it gives you a better thermal efficiency from that standpoint. And then transparent that you see the compact is a solid compact, could be 6 millimeters or 3 millimeters, depending on the application. And that is as clear as glass polycarbonate. Then you get into kind of the code compliances, which says, in a nutshell, every town is different. I mean, the town that I live in says, oh, you have an enclosure, you don't need a fence. The next town over from me says, well, that's okay, but we still want you to have a fence. And the next town over that says, you don't even need a permit for the enclosure because the enclosure is considered a non-permanent structure. So again, every town, there is no code throughout the industry that says, hey, an enclosure permit is needed or not needed, or a fence is needed. So it's really one of those town by towns. So from a standpoint, it's considered a temporary non-permanent structure because there are customers that will have an enclosure, they move in, they'll pick it up and move it to the next house. You can do that with an enclosure. You can't do that with an in-ground pool. Well, not so easily. So at the end of the day, you're going to look at this and say, from a building permit standpoint, zoning permit, and is it needed? Is it not needed? And again, it's totally up in the air as far as how towns look at this and see it. From an engineering standpoint, the enclosures are designed to sustain whatever required wind and snow loads are. So you might have an enclosure that's sitting down in Alabama as an example versus one that's up in Maine that needs a different snow load versus a wind load. So there are different profiles out there. These are the sizes of the beams. So that takes into consideration that. There's what's called a static calculation. That static calculation is saying, hey, the joints of this entire enclosure, every point, what are they? What is the wind load? What is the snow load? How does that, compare to what I need? Meaning, hey, I'm an architect. I got to say, I need this particular, whether it's a patio enclosure or a spa or whatnot, commercial, residential, they're going to require certain wind and snow loads that the enclosure needs to meet that. Now, the enclosure will stop the uplift, which is the flying up in the air by having what is the bottom left. You're going to see L brackets. Those L brackets are going to be interlocked inside the track to stop what is the uplift of that enclosure. So quite often we'll say, well, what's going to stop from the wind blowing it away? Well, that's exactly what it does, is that L bracket is interlocked inside the track that will stop that enclosure from having that uplift and having that ability to lock down from any high winds. And so typically what we're going to see is the enclosure structures are going to be anywhere from 110 to 150, 160 mile an hour wind ratings. So that's kind of where we typically see the ratings fall into place. So from a typical project progression, you're going to say if it's an existing pool, what are the measurements? What's the width of the pool, the length of the pool? What's the deck space? And then a design drawing, which you're going to see in the top right-hand corner. A design drawing is done. Then it goes to a manufacturing standpoint. Then ultimately that enclosure then would get delivered. So kind of talking that through a little bit more. Enclosure, one gets to the manufacturing. Two, the first thing, the pool needs to be there in an application of a pool or a patio or whatnot. That needs to be there, and the deck needs to be there. Then the tracks are installed. The enclosure, if it's got to be built on site, that's built on site. They slide into the segments. Then from a standpoint number 5, you would install what is the gable end or face, as it's called out there in the industry. And then your project is complete there. All right, that concludes that scenario. I'm going to spend just 1 minute on who we are. So that was the course from a standpoint. Again, I'm Alex Stonkus, Pool and Spa Enclosure CEO. I've been doing this now over 17 years. We manufactured over 6,000 enclosures a year. We have enclosures in every state, including Alaska, Hawaii, across the board. We do our own internal engineering drawings and so on. Our list consists of everything from homeowners to great architects that are out there. And this, I'm probably running a little bit late here, so I'm going to I'm
Good.
going to show this. It's going to take about. All right. I'll I just wanted to show you that because that's a 4-year-old child. That enclosure is 30, just over 30 feet wide, 9.5 feet high, to show you how simple it is for one person. And that, again, is being fully supervised. It is fully lockable, but having one person open and close an enclosure should be that easy. All right. Love
Thank
to,
you.
oh, love to answer any questions that are out there now.
Okay, I will read them off to you, the ones that I've got in the chat and the Q&A. The first question we got, this sliding mechanism, what do you do with the components in a winter climate? Would you have to remove them from the track?
No, from a sliding standpoint, I always tell people go through the door. Don't even open it up in the winter. People are, well, because at the end of the day, it's why you have the enclosure. You want to be able to, yeah, you can open it. If you got 2 feet of snow around it, then, what's the point of opening? Like your house, you open up a door, you go inside, and you're utilizing your inside of the pool or enclosure or patio or whatever space you have. So really, in the off season, inclement weather, no need to open up the enclosure. From that standpoint, you got a nice door. Just enter the door and enjoy the enclosure.
Perfect. Okay. What temperature increase can be expected inside versus outside?
Yep. So, give you an example. I'm in New Jersey. I was in my enclosure. Imagine that I have an enclosure. I was in my enclosure. It was 40 degrees outside. It was sunny. It was 40 degrees outside. It was 78 degrees inside my enclosure.
Wow.
I said to my wife, I said, you know what, we ought to be sleeping in here. It's warmer than inside the house. So, you know, and that's with the sun happening, so from a standpoint, but keep in mind, you've knocked out the wind chill factor, which is one of the worst things for you. The wind chill factor is gone. Your outside elements, your snow and rain and sleet and hail and leaves and debris and so on. So you're going to get that elevation in because of that polycarbonate. I don't know, and again, if you've ever been in a greenhouse, you can better conceptually understand it, that's what the environment is, because that's what we use. We use polycarbonate in the pool, and then a lot of the patio ones will use safety glass, but predominantly that polycarbonate is going to create that greenhouse effect. So as I said, it was 40 degrees outside. My thermometer read 78 degrees inside my enclosure. It was beautiful. So
That's great. Um, a follow-up to the winter question, would the metal rust in the winter?
we don't use metal. Nothing is metal. All we use is aluminum. The tracks are anodized. Um, and we have car dealerships that'll buy our enclosures. They'll actually park their, I don't know what you call it, their lovely, gem cars or whatever inside of our enclosures. I mean, their tires run over our tracks, just to show you the durability and stability of our enclosures. So yeah, so from a standpoint, that polycarbonate is going to create that greenhouse effect. The uh, beams are aluminum. Aluminum doesn't rust. So typically you're going to see out in the industry, there is nothing that is, and that's why the environment, the water environment, whether it's a pool or a spa or anything else, it's not like, you're going to see a lot of the older structures out there that are steel. Well, you got a big problem because, yeah, they're going to say, you're good. And then all of a sudden, you've got that problem where it's rusting and things of that nature, or you need to put in a dehumidification system in that's, 50, $100,000 plus. Well, uh, typical pool or patio or spa enclosures, you don't do that with. You don't need it to do that. You don't need to get rid of the moisture. You don't, because there's nothing that's going to damage the enclosure. It's aluminum polycarbonate, stainless steel. So nothing's going to damage a typical pool enclosure or spa or patio enclosure for that matter.
Awesome. I think we've got time for two more here. First one here, how do you handle irregular pool decks or multi-level terraces?
I'm sorry, how do you handle?
Irregular pool decks or multi-level terraces?
Yep. So a regular pool deck is, if I understand, is just kind of a flat pool deck, which means that the tracks, being retractable, you're going to run in parallel lines no matter what, because it's not like a train where you can kind of, follow it on a swivel. So by having a regular pool, what does that mean? It means that you're going to have that capability that says, I can be on different parallel lines. And then the enclosure is going to retract to the right or retract to the left, and based on where you have that. Now, if you're a terrace and you're on different levels, the same thing is you got to look at this and say, well, okay, I still got to run on parallel lines, but that enclosure runs to here, but then it has a face there that's going to cut that off. And so a lot of times you got to, I always tell people, if there's a will, there's a way. There's been times where we've said, hey, you really got to do some really big changes to make this happen. And people are like, okay, no problem, I'll do that. Or, oh boy, no, I didn't, I'm not going to do that. So like the lean-tos, you need to have a flat wall in which to put the track on. So on that terrace, as an example, you can put it on this wall on this side, this wall on that side, that's closer or further away, and then they kind of interconnect and then fall, and then you can utilize that space. So it's absolutely, you know, um, uh, it's absolutely doable. But at the end of the day, it's, hey, what is that application really going to look like in the layout and design of it? So.
I think we got time for one more here. And then what annual maintenance is recommended?
Um, Having friends over.
That's a good answer.
Yeah, and it's funny. Somebody said, he called me, he goes, the biggest problem is I got more friends than I used to have. Because whether I have a terrace and they're using that, or I got a pool or a spa, everybody wants to come over. From a maintenance standpoint, the wheels are fully encased. There's no lubricating. There's no this, that. So what we tell people is, if the polycarbonate, like here, I'm out in the woods, and once a year, and come after all the pollen gets down and all that, I'll power wash my enclosure because I got, probably a quarter inch of pollen that's sitting on my entire enclosure. And I'm like, okay, so power wash it is fine, clean it off, and it's good to go. It's like, it's a pool one as an example. It's just common sense. It says, what, if I'm going to, cut my grass, don't blow the clippings into the track.
Right.
And just like when they're done, mowing the grass, just blow off the driveway and blow off the track. If it's a patio enclosure, just keep the track clean. That's it. Very simple. From a standpoint of maintenance, I'll tell somebody, once a year, just take some WD-40 and squirt it in the lock, and, I say it, but I haven't done it in probably 5+ years, and I got absolutely no problem with my locks. But, so maintenance, very, very simple and very straightforward to go ahead and maintain your enclosures.
Awesome. Well, that is the majority of those questions. Anyone else that has any more questions, feel free to reach out to Alex directly through Acelab, or you also have his contact information. And thank you for a great presentation, Alex.
All right, terrific. Again, thank everybody. We are here to help the architects. We're here to help you design, engineer, if there are different applications, whether commercial, residential, pool, spa, patio. I got a great team, and as I said, I mean we're doing 125 enclosures a week we're manufacturing. So if there's any applications out there that you have, we'd love to hear about them.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Great, thank you.
All right, bye.